Hi! If you're seeing this, I guess that's a good sign that I actually followed through and made a video. I'm Ali. I'm an illustrator and 2D animator for motion graphics. I used to go by hialycat on my social media, but I think it's time for a new era in my art journey. Today I'm going to be doing a portrait study with a new medium, gouache. I'll just have the process video playing here and share some techniques that work for me. If I remember what's going on through my mind as I'm creating all of this, I'll go ahead and share that too. And if I can't remember anything, I'll ramble here and there just about what's been on my mind and my own art journey. Feel free to come along and paint with me or just watch me try to figure it out. This will be a huge learning experience for all of us. I know this painting starts out literally in the middle and the face is pretty far along, which I'm kind of sad about because I really wanted to show you guys the beginning of this painting when the colors on the face were a complete mess and I somehow brought it back to this. But what happened was I was using a small SD card and assumed it was big enough for all the footage I was going to film that day. Obviously, I've never filmed before and it didn't tell me that it was full. It ended up deleting the first part that I recorded. Unfortunately, I'm not a time traveler, so this is what we're left with and I'll take what I can get. I've never really tried gouache before. The only painting medium I somewhat stayed consistent with was watercolor. And I felt I only gravitated to that because it was the easiest medium to prep and clean up for. I don't know what led me to try gouache all of a sudden. I think it might have been when I was rearranging my room one day and I found my Himi jelly gouache paints that I bought over 3 years ago. It might have been the guilt for not using it, but I finally decided to give it an honest try. Oh, by the way, if you want to find the references that I used, I'll have a link to my Pinterest board so that you can have access to that. I think sometimes I just might forget to post each individual link to all the references I use. But yeah, if I'm missing any, feel free to comment and I can add that to the board. So I've only made about 3 or 4 gouache paintings so far, but I really like it a lot. Although in the beginning, it was sort of like turning on a different art switch in my brain because it was so different to me from watercolor. I think the first main thing that was tough for me to get used to was how opaque this medium is. When I paint with watercolor, so much of how the color comes out depends on how much water I add to it. If I wanted a lighter color, I just add more water. And if I wanted a color more intense, I just use a small amount of pigment and work my way up in subtle layers until I get the colors I want. However, with gouache, I felt I had to be very confident with what colors I wanted, even before putting the paint down, if that makes sense. I tried adding water in my first few attempts to mix color, but found that water mixed gouache super streaky and inconsistent. After a while, I did get more confident with mixing colors, even though I will say it still takes me a few attempts to get my colors right. Another thing is that gouache also dries interestingly. So while mixing the colors on my palette, I started noticing that some colors will dry darker and some lighter. Most oftentimes, it dries darker in my experience. So in the footage that I lost for this process video, it showed that I probably had to repaint her face 2 or 3 times because the skin tone and the shadow tones weren't exaggerated enough and ended up being similar tones. What showed as lighter tones on my palette ended up drying much darker on paper. Another thing I haven't quite figured out how to do is blend. I think this is probably something that will come with time and experience with this medium, so I'm not too incredibly worried about it. But what I mean by blending is how the colors transition from one to the other. If you can't sort of tell from my painting, I'll just lay down little squares of colors and you can still see those little squares. I think a future goal of mine would be so that these segmented pigments won't be as apparent and I would be able to create more purposeful shapes and also be able to mix more curated colors so that these different colors won't be as jarring. But I'm honestly not too mad at it so far. Something that I did find similar with watercolor and gouache was waiting for the layers to dry before adding new layers. In the beginning, I was a bit more impatient, so I would try to layer the colors too fast. With watercolor, I think doing that is a bit more forgiving since the water helps blend the colors and it's not such a drastic change. But with gouache, I think it's just not good at mixing on the paper itself. So when the previous layer hasn't dried enough, it just starts spreading the pigment unevenly and leaves it streaky. So that's sort of my first take on gouache so far. I'm honestly so excited with how much I've learned with each new painting, and I kind of feel like a kid again. And I like the idea of not knowing where the painting is going to take me each time. So this is not my first time on social media. Like I mentioned before, I did have another art account on Instagram called hialycat, or some people refer to it as hialycat because they didn't know my name was Ali. If you know, you know. If anyone was supporting me on that before, first of all, thank you for supporting me. You have no idea how much I truly remember from everyone that came to my streams or sent me DMs and left me comments. It all really stayed with me. And if you're here now, again, welcome to a continuation of my art journey. And of course, if you didn't know me as hialycat, which I'm sure most of you don't, I was known for colorful digital portraits, and I'll pop up some examples here. After a while of being on social media, I think you get known for creating a specific type of style or doing a certain thing, and I think that's what really stunted my growth as an artist before. It even made me lose my own reasoning for creating art. I put such a big pressure on myself to post on a timeline and create such a fast turnaround for each drawing that I don't think I was growing or even enjoying it anymore. I stopped doing doodles because I had it in my head that everything I create had to be good enough to post. And ultimately, that kind of made me unable to come up with new ideas. Or maybe try a style that I would be bad at. Or even try something that I might just enjoy for the purpose of having fun. Growing up, art was my safe space. I was a pretty quiet kid, I moved around a lot, and making friends was a bit tougher, so I always turned to my sketches. As I got older, I think just from adults around me and even some friends, I would hear that art wasn't really a career. Social media wasn't a thing back then, and I'm exposing my age, but I think that put me in a state of, oh, I have to create art in a way that is profitable and sustainable for me to continue doing what I love to do. Over time, although I was able to get good client work and gain traction on my social media accounts, I think I kind of lost my way and reasoning for why I was even creating art in the first place. I got so consumed in trying to figure out what was working and what wasn't that I wasn't really having fun at all, which kind of led to an extremely long break from art. The break actually lasted about 2 or 3 years, to be honest. I was still doing a lot of client work and freelancing, and although I'm grateful for all those opportunities I got and all the people and brands I got to work with, having to creatively be on all the time was so exhausting. I stopped making personal art altogether. Just trying to be around a sketchbook or a pencil was impossible for me. But lately, I've been sketching random things and trying to rediscover what type of art I actually want to do. I started drawing for myself a few months ago and started gouache probably about 2 weeks ago. Before, I couldn't even tell you the last time I doodled. It's been nice to have that tactile feel again and just to create and paint for no other purpose than just enjoying it. And I think I've gotten to a healthy state in my art healing journey where I'm actually excited by the idea of trying to document it. And hopefully that's what this YouTube channel will be. Hopefully on this channel you'll see a lot of ugly work. I really want to experiment with a lot of different mediums and styles and really try to find my reason for creating art again. This time on social media, I want to create slower and more meaningful content. I have to admit, as crazy as it sounds, painting for just fun is a bit of an uncomfortable statement that I'm trying to get used to again. But I'm ready to switch that part of my brain back on. And here is the finished product. I ended up going over some of the edges and cleaning it up with a neon acrylic marker. I think it just brings out a lot more light to the painting. And plus, I'm gonna be honest with you, I just didn't have fuchsia paint color, so I ended up using the acrylic marker. But yeah, I think it added a really nice touch to the end. I also ended up drawing some cute shapes around it. Lately, I've been wanting to get into more simpler doodles, and I thought why not just add it all around the painting. So I know that was a lot of rambling, and if you're still here, I hope you like the painting. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment below. I can't wait to actually finish the sketchbook, so I'll for sure keep on doodling and painting. Thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you in the next video, whenever that is. Alright, bye!